Before I dive in with a professional introduction, I've just got to say, seeing Mrs. Fisher's class go absolutely crazy every time we do those intros is one of the joys of my job. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Southard's class, Mr. Blondo's class, welcome in as well in the background. Hopefully you're all set to go. My name is Jesse, everyone. Welcome into another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. We are wrapping up March in style. We've got like 15 programs on every kind of science discipline imaginable in the next like 5-6 days. It's crazy. So please do come join us. Check them all out on our YouTube channel. There is so much to explore and discover there. Before I lead in with our topic du jour, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to test your understanding and have some fun, you can pull along that game pin in a separate tab and join us for the adventure. So please do that. And I also want you to give a big round of applause. I'm tapping as I'm holding the mic here to our amazing speaker, Carolyn, because I'm not infallible. I screwed up royally today, and we almost had to change this program last minute because I did such a bad job of sending emails. So we made it work. Carolyn's our hero, and Carolyn is joining us at the Missoula Butterfly House and Insectarium. She joined us back in early February, and today she is going to take us an epic tour of their bug zoo. So a huge thank you to you, Carolyn, and welcome back to the broadcast. And I'm going to leave you to dive in for a minute, but just thank you again for making this happen with our horde of kids from all across North America. You rock, and I can't wait to learn about our creepy crawly and amazing friends. So I'll leave you to it.
Sounds good. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Carolyn. I'm our education coordinator here at the Missoula Butterfly House and Insectarium. We're in Missoula, Montana. And I am going to show you guys around our museum just a little bit. Then we're going to go into the lab. We're going to go behind the scenes at what's happening here. And then we are going to meet some of our bug friends. And you guys are welcome to ask questions in the chat. You can ask questions with Jesse, however you want to do it. Just let us know what you're curious about. And we will go along. So our insectarium, our bug zoo, is all about different arthropods. And so arthropod is a big fancy word that describes insects and their relatives. Any animal that's an arthropod has a hard shell. They have lots of legs that are jointed. They are bilateral symmetry, so they're the same on both sides. And they have a segmented body. And so in that category, people don't always realize, but we have crustaceans. We have crustaceans, crabs, shrimp, lobsters. Sometimes people say, I would never eat a bug. But then if you've had a shrimp, you've had a bug relative, I guess I should say. Then we've got our millipedes. We've got centipedes in this category, arachnids. Those are eight-legged friends, right? Our spiders, our scorpions, our ticks. And then, of course, last but not least, the insects. So that's who's in our museum. I'm going to show you guys Frankie, because Frankie is never out of his cage. Well, actually, he's not out of his cage now. He is very rarely not hiding, I guess is how I should say it. He is the most venomous animal that we have here. So it's always nice to see him showing off. He's never. So Frankie is in the centipede category. His face kind of looks like this one. And here he is. I'm sorry about the reflection. Where is he at? There he is. So there's Frankie down by his tank, by his water dish. And you can see, hopefully, by his colors, that he is very venomous. He's got bright colors that tell us, watch out, I'm very dangerous. You don't want to mess with me. So that is Frankie. And it's just a special day because Frankie is very shy. He does not like hanging out. So I'm actually honestly really surprised that he's out. So we can't miss an opportunity to see Frankie. So let's see. Oh, and Carla is over here as well. Let me try a different camera to show you guys. Carla, come with me. We'll see if Carla will show off. There we go. So Carla is a Mexican red-knee tarantula. And you can see, a lot of times animal names will tell you a lot about them. Mexican red-knee tarantula. She's from Mexico. She's got red-orange colors on her knees. So that is Carla. There we go. Okay, so we're going to keep going around the museum. It's Monday today, so you might see other people going back and forth behind me. They are doing behind the scenes work, which is kind of our theme for the day. Mondays we're closed, which means we can clean the tanks, clean the terrariums, do construction projects. Over on this wall, we have information about all of our different animals and their role in the ecosystem, whether they're predators, decomposers, pollinators. One really special exhibit that we have over here is our leaf cutter ant exhibit. And what you're seeing, let's see, on this end, this is where our food source is for the ants. And then if we come this way, they climb along the rope that you're seeing. And then let me turn onto our other camera for a moment. Okay. Let's see. The reflection's hard, but this is where they build their colony and they build all of their food. So ants are not, they're being tough to see, but our ants are not actually eating any of the leaves that they cut. They're instead using them as like the way farmers might. They're farming a fungus. So they're growing the fungus, they're feeding the fungus or the leaves to the fungus, and then they eat the fungus. And that fungus actually does not exist without the ants.
Yes. It's one of the coolest. I want to harp on that for a second, because every time someone brings up leafcutter ants, they're one of the most amazing insects on this planet. So if you go to rainforest in Central South America, you can see these moving along in like trains of like millions of ants. They're one of the biggest societies of insects in the world. So the biggest cities on planet Earth have about 30 million people. And if I'm not wrong, right? Like leafcutter ant colonies can have something on the 10 million plus mark. Like it's just wild.
I don't know exactly, but it wouldn't surprise me if they have millions and millions and millions. It's amazing. And our ants are actually from Texas. So you don't even have to go that far. If you're in Texas, there are types, southern Texas, I think, there are leafcutter ants around there too.
We've featured people that study them directly, and they pour concrete into their burrows, and just to see how big the burrow is, and you dig out all the soil, and they're like the size of a house. Like imagine your house, but upside down, and that's what leafcutter ants live in all these little network of tunnels. It's just crazy. Anyway, I'll leave you to it, Carolyn. Sorry, just very excited.
Oh, I love it when people get excited about ants. This is not concrete, but that is the start of one of their cities. I don't think that's concrete actually, but yeah, so that is what they look like, kind of like soccer balls with tunnels, which is pretty neat. Let's see. So we're going to keep going around this way. Speaking of social insects, we normally have our colony of bees here. This is our observation beehive, and the bees have the ability to fly in and out and come back. Right now, they're at their winter home because it is still very much winter here in Montana. And so the problem with an observation beehive is that they didn't realize it was winter. It was warm inside. They'd go outside. They would freeze. So we brought them to a winter home where they can be until they're ready to come back. So we're going to come this way, and we're going to actually go into the lab now. We've got helpers here today, and they're zooming out of the way, but we're going to go into the lab, and we are going to learn about what goes on in the lab. So we've got a special door here that's locked and I have to have my key with me. Because only certain people are allowed in here.
Why is it locked? Tell us more.
So we are a USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture containment facility, and we are, which means we have to follow certain rules so that none of our bugs escape. And you have to have training in order to come into the lab. And so it's Monday, and I'm seeing some people are getting trained on how to take care of the animals. That's part of that process. So we don't want anybody to escape. So here we come. Here we go. Hi. All right. So here's the lab. It's okay. So in the lab, we've got all kinds of different animals in here. This is the tarantula shelf. Then we've got lots of beetles back here. We've got a human animal named Luna working on feeding some animals. We've got all kinds of different things in here. The main role of this room is so that we can feed all the animals, keep them happy, keep them healthy. And just like any museum, not all of our pieces of our collection are out on display on the museum floor at one time. And we have some back here. So if an animal isn't happy on display or is getting sick or dies, we can swap them out. And then we can also make sure we have all the food that they need to eat, and their cages are clean. We got lots of kinds of stuff. So if you guys have questions as I go, just let me know. And I can do my best.
Actually, Carolyn, we have a first question. And so live classes, please do. Feel free to share these ones in the chat, and then I'll come to you live when we actually do the big Q&A at the end. But one of our great YouTube questions is, do any of the insects share a home? Do you have like cockroaches, centipedes, and spiders, or are they all separate?
Yeah. That's a great question. It depends on the animal. Some animals like to be together, or at least they don't mind being together, and some are very territorial and do not like being together. So tarantulas, they're on their own. They don't share. Who else? Beetles are that's not true. Most of our beetles do not share. Whereas, the cockroaches live together, and there's like 80 of them. But I was actually wheeling over here to share with you the giant Malayan the giant Malayan stick insects. But we call them twigzillas because they're so big. Their tank is up to here. So I'm standing on the ground. I'm 5'5". This is our tank. It's probably 4.5 feet tall. And I'll bring out. They all live together in here, and see if you can spot them.
I see twigs. Maybe I see twigzilla in there. I don't know. We're going to find out.
Maybe a dozen of them.
Sweet.
All right. Come here, friend. Oh my gosh, they've gotten so big. Come here, buddy.
Tokyo is in big trouble right now as Twigzilla enters the picture.
Come here.
I will say, as you're pulling one of these out, if any of our classes are near a place with an insectarium or a bug zoo, stick insects are usually the go-to creature that they'll allow you to hold. They're really, really special. They feel really interesting on your hands, and they're just such an amazing creature. So I hope you get that chance. Oh, there we are. Twigzilla. That is huge. That's the biggest one I've ever seen.
She's really big, and she's white, and she's pretty strong. I see one of the questions is, are you ever scared? So start with that one. I know which ones are scary and which ones aren't. Like Twigzilla, I'm not scared of. And the ones that I'm scared or would be cautious about, like Frankie, we've got rules about how we take care of them, and we make sure that they've got locks on their cages. We have rules about how we feed them so you don't get hurt. So there's different procedures that we follow to avoid any potential problems.
Nice.
So that's a good question.
Frankie really wants to go up. Frankie always wants to climb. It looks like, I say that and then immediately starts going down your back. Live animal interactions. You never know what's going to happen.
Nope. So anyway, and why don't the ants eat the leaves? That's a good, so they're not eating them. I don't know. They probably have the ability to digest them, but they're not the nutritious thing that they're after. They're looking for the fungus. So I'm just seeing that in the chat as a question.
Yeah.
So here we go. So this is Twigzilla. So that's a great question about whether or not they live in groups. She's clearly not loving this interaction, so I'm going to give her a break, put her back.
But thank you for that indelible image of a just absolutely losing its mind Twigzilla creature. That is by far the biggest stick insect I've ever seen by a huge margin. So I'm so glad we got the chance to meet.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
They're pretty special. They're really big. There's it's an old movie, but they are insects of significant size. And I'm gonna get a friend from up here because I'm going to bring, this is an animal who's, sometimes we give our animals first names so that people feel a little more comfortable, sort of like Carla and Frankie. But so I'm going to bring Ringo Starr out, and you guys can guess what kind of animal Ringo Starr is.
Our teachers all immediately know what kind of animal Ringo Starr is, but I'd be really curious to hear later what the kids think Ringo Starr is.
What you guys think of Ringo. So I have someone here who's really special, and she is getting ready to go out on display, and we are trying to ease her into that. She is a spider who likes the dark, who likes tunnels, who likes being feeling safe and protected. And so we are trying to make her still feel safe and protected, but in a way that people can see her out in the museum. So what we've done is build her a tank here. And on the other side of this is a half of a log that's up against the glass. And so we're hoping that she'll stay in the log by the glass. But what Andy, who's in charge of our lab, did is that she put some red tissue paper on there just to filter the light without blocking it all the way. And I'm actually bringing her some supplies from my classroom, from my craft supplies, so that we can have a little bit more light filtering in just to ease her into being on display. So what I'm going to do here is take Suria's little cover off, and we'll see if she's showing off today.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah, Frankie was really showy. We'll see if Surya is also playing along. Oh my gosh, she's beautiful. Andy, good job.
Thank you.
So I'm going to get closer, and then if we need to switch cameras, we will. Oh, hold on. We've got a reflection. We're going to go with the other camera.
Sweet.
Plan B.
Plan B.
This is her abdomen, that yellow orangey part. So let's see. Hold on.
This is your sneak peek, special camera setup in the Missoula Butterfly House of our spider right up against the glass. Oh yeah, look at her.
And then I'm going to point my computer screen away so that it's not too. So there she is.
Hi.
Beautiful.
So here is. So it's trying to work with the reflection. You can sort of see me. Hi. But here's Surya. And like I was saying, she's in a log. So this is her whole tank. And Andy did an awesome job making a tunnel that has one exit, or actually 1 and 2 exits. And then she's able to hide in there, but we can still see her.
Sweet. And we've got a question about spiders generally, actually, and I think a lot of our kids know this, but could you tell us about the 8 legs and 8 eyes thing? Do all spiders have 8 legs? Do all spiders have 8 eyes? What's the deal?
That's a good question. So a spider that is healthy will have 8 legs. We actually had a spider named Seven, or named 7 of 9 if you watch Star Trek at all, but 7 of 9 had only 7 legs. So I'm going to switch cameras. And that is because she had some sort of injury at some point. And I don't know exactly if she came to us that way or not, but she had 7 legs. Maybe she got in a fight with a bird or got sick or something, but she had 7 legs. But a healthy spider is always going to have 8. Carla actually had a molting accident where she lost a leg and she only had 7. But so healthy spiders, yes, 8 legs. Not all spiders are going to have, thanks, Danny. Not all spiders are going to have 8 eyes. It just depends on the spider. Whoosh, we've got heavy double doors to get in and out of the lab.
Behind the scenes is a great place to be. Thank you very much for the help. And we wanted to just quickly confirm, what kind of spider was our friend up against the glass?
She was a Venezuelan sun tiger.
Ooh,
Venezuelan sun tiger spider. Yeah, it's a beautiful name. But yes, most spiders will have 8 eyes. That's true, but not all of them. So some will have none. Spiders that live in caves usually will have no eyes. If you live in a cave, there's no light. Our light eyes work because light comes into them. A signal goes to our brain, and then we get an answer of what's out there. If there's no light, why bother having eyes? So a lot of spiders that live in caves don't have any eyes. They will have eyes in pairs, though, because they are bilaterally symmetrical. So you're going to have an even number of eyes.
Thank you for the context. And I love that you brought in caves to that. That's true of pretty much every animal. Fish in caves, salamanders in caves, and things live in caves or live in really dark, murky places like dark rivers. They tend to lose their eyesight because they don't need it. So it sort of evolves away. So very cool. Carolyn, are we meeting anyone else? I don't want to jump the gun, or are we diving in with Q&A?
Let's meet Ringo, and then we can, let's see. Ringo, are you hiding? No. All right, Ringo is a rainbow stag beetle. Rainbow stag beetle. So, my camera got detached. So he is right here snacking on his banana.
Sweet.
He's probably a little confused about why are you moving me around so much? But he's got big sort of mandible horn kind of dealies that are going to help him fight off other males so that he can get access to the females to reproduce.
Sweet.
So,
he's also way more chill than our sick insect earlier. He's just enjoying that banana.
Totally. He's a chill guy. So yeah, the walking sticks will walk around on you. Ringo, as long as he's not upset, he just sort of chills. And he's also not very fast.
And
so,
Carolyn, what do you use those giant pincers for in the front?
Yeah, so those are what he is considered an animal with extreme weapons. So he uses these weapons not for preying on other animals. He's a fruit guy. He eats fruit and tree sap, maple syrup kind of. He doesn't use them for defense mostly. He is using them to battle with other males over access to females. So if you think about an elk or a bighorn sheep or a deer, the males with the big horns, they are going to be fighting with other males to get access to the females. And beetles, that happens too in their world.
Super cool. Ringo is magnificent. I love him. Very cool. Well, if you'd like, we can dive in with a little Kahoot, test some understanding and some cool insect and bug facts, and then we can dive in with our big Q&A because I can literally see you guys chomping at the bit. And if you want to share anything else about your friends at the zoo, please do stop me at any time and dive in. But does that work?
That works for me, yeah.
Amazing. Let's dive in with our Kahoot. 4 quick questions. Some of these you've covered to some extent. Some are just a little bit new to have some fun. And if you're new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is Carolyn and I's everlasting respect. So no pressure at all. But we're going to dive in with this. 24 of you already in. 419-566. And I'm going to get us underway. Carolyn, if you want to help us with any hints with any of these questions, you are more than welcome to steer us in the right direction. But let's dive in. And then Mrs. Fisher's class, you guys are going to be our first live questions. YouTubers, keep sharing them there. Mr. Southard, Mr. Blondo, Mr. Hancock, we're coming to you all too, I promise. All right. How many kinds of insect do we think we are? We've met a few today, but in the whole world, kind of insect, not individuals. So like a beetle's different from a certain kind of beetle's different from another kind of beetle. Are there hundreds of kinds of insect, thousands, tens of thousands, or millions and millions? Carolyn, what do we think?
I can tell you how many types of beetles we think there are.
Please do.
we think that there are about 350 to 400,000 types of beetles.
Which speaks for it all. And I haven't seen a pure 100% correct Kahoot answer in a long time. When we go into rainforest, we find new species of insect every time. Like every single time we find something that no one has ever described to science, which is crazy. So you guys nailed it. And that leads us to question 2. Are there more people than there are ants on Earth? Or is that totally false? Now, we talked about that leafcutter ant colony, how big that one colony of ants is. And there can be like hundreds of those, if not thousands, in one area of forest. So maybe...
We actually have a scale that'll tell you your weight in ants, how many ants it would take to equal one of you. And then we have how many of you it would take to equal all of the ants on the planet.
One of my favorite charts ever was like if you weighed all the animals in like the Amazon rainforest, like all the jaguars, all the birds, all the snakes, it's about 1/4 the weight of the ants. So there are way more ants than people on Earth. It's not even close. They're everywhere. Probably one behind me right. Probably is one behind me right now. All right. Question number 3. One of the largest ever invertebrates. So these things with these cool exoskeletons was a millipede relative. Kind of looked like a millipede. How long did it get? Did it get 6 inches, 12 inches, 2 feet, or like 6 feet, which is like as long as I am tall? What do we think?
I love this one because this was actually the common ancestor between millipedes and centipedes back in the day. And it was at a time when dragonflies were the size of seagulls.
Yes. So kids, if you ever look up, it's called the Carboniferous. I know it's a big word, sounds very fancy, but like the things that were back then got crazy because there was way more oxygen in the atmosphere. So things could get huge. All right.
They have an open circulatory system, which means that oxygen sort of moves around, not through tunnels and tubes like us.
Super cool.
Pretty wild.
Dolphin has our lead as we go to our final question before our Q&A. Tarantulas have lethal venom and should never be handled. What do we think? We met our tarantula friend earlier. They got big fangs, but are they going to kill you or are they just okay? What do we think? Carolyn, have you held a tarantula?
I have held a tarantula before. Not Syria, but I have. I don't mess with Syria, but yes, I would hold a tarantula before I would hold Syria.
We had so many people get this incorrect. So tarantulas are actually, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about a bee sting, correct? Is a tarantula bite by and large?
It depends. Yeah. So tarantulas from North and South America have fairly weak venom because they have a lot of ways to defend themselves. They've got hairs, they'll run away, all kinds of things. Tarantulas from from Africa and Asia, I wouldn't mess with them. They've got much stronger venom. And so it would make you really uncomfortable, but it wouldn't kill you. No one's ever died from a tarantula bite.
There we go. So thank you very much for that contact and nuance. Amazing Bee is our winner. Thank you so much for that. And I love that you mentioned that they have different weapons. I'm going to harp on this for a second because scorpions, we see these big scorpions, big meaty emperor scorpions, got huge claws, big tail. And the sting is pretty meh. But you find a scorpion that's tiny and he doesn't have those big pincers. Those are the ones that you have to worry about as people because their only way of subduing prey is that venom. So their venom is super powerful because they don't have the claws to do it. So if you ever get stung by a big scorpion, you're likely okay. Depends on the species again, but it's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and another way to think about it is that nature likes balance, and you're not going to spend. You can think about it a little bit about money, right? Spending your energy, the food that you eat, turning that into venom. Why bother if you can control your prey and defend yourself with big claws? So it's not an exact one-for-one science about big claws, weak venom, and vice versa, but it's a good benchmark because if you've got big claws, that can help defend yourself. It can help you eat. You don't really need your venom all the time.
People put all our energy into our brains. Our brains take up about like a huge proportion of what we eat goes to making sure our brain is happy and healthy. So we don't have big claws or cool claws or venom or run really fast or any of the other things that a lot of animals have. We're pretty weak as animals because we put so much into thinking instead. So very cool topic, guys. All right. You guys are literally all lining up in your classes. So we're going to dive in with Q&A. Mrs. Fisher's class, Carsonville, come on in and take us away. Hey, guys.
How does the rainbow help the beetles?
Ooh.
That is such a good question. And we are lucky that there's a university. The University of Montana is in this town, in our city, and there's a beetle researcher there. And I got that question too, and I didn't know why. It makes them stand out, right? And so I asked one of the beetle researcher's students, a grad student, someone that's helping him in his lab, and I said, why is that? And he's like, we don't really know for sure. They have a best guess. They have a hypothesis, but it's not something that's really been tested by a lot of scientists. So if this is something you're curious about, you can be the one that digs into that, which is pretty neat. Their best guess of why this beetle is that rainbowy reflective color is that it is a way to confuse predators. So if you've ever looked out at a lake and it's really sunny and there's a lot of light shimmering off of it, it's not super easy to look at and know exactly where something is. So the idea is that if the light is reflecting off of that shiny rainbow color, it's sort of like shining a flashlight in the eyes of the predator, and they're not able to exactly pinpoint where the beetle is. So we don't know exactly, but that's the best working guess right now.
Not only is it a cool guess, but the fact that we sort of stumped the experts is very cool. So Mrs. Fisher's class, again, you can be the researcher that find out why that is, and then come on in the program in like 15 years and tell us all about it. Can't wait. Mr. Southwood's class, we're going to head to you guys now. Come on in, unmute your mic, and take us away. Hey, guys.
Hi. How long does the rainbow stag beetle live?
Oh, I love that you guys are asking about the stag beetle. Here's the thing. Beetles go through metamorphosis, complete metamorphosis, which means that they've got an egg, a larva, pupa, and an adult stage, just like a butterfly, but different because they're beetles, but the same steps. And I forget exactly, but when you think about their total lifespan, you have to think about their time as a larva, pupa, and an adult. And often these beetles will spend years underground as a larva first, pupa for 6 months maybe, and then like 6 to 9 months as an adult. This guy, I don't remember off the top of my head his exact larval and pupal timing, but it's only about a year as an adult. And but we had a rainbow stag beetle named Bo, and he lived for like 3+ years. So I don't know what was special about Bo, but he kept living, and he kept the other beetles died off, but he kept going. And let's see, we've had Ringo. He came to us in 2024. So he's doing pretty good too.
I love that we're getting beetle questions for one thing. It's really fantastic that you guys are so keen on Ringo. And two, thank you for mentioning the life cycle stages. So some insects, again, will be an egg for years, decades, and then they hatch and they come out, and it's like they're alive for like a day as an adult in some cases, literally, and then they die or they lay eggs, and then it's a whole new generation. So insects are really weird. They're not quite like us mammals in a lot of ways. So love when we get those questions. And
they can actually, sometimes there's butterfly and moth larvae that can stay in their pupal case and choose not to emerge if the conditions are not right. So if it's too wintry, too cold, they can choose to stay another year in their,
imagine if babies were like that for people. We're just like, no, not coming out yet. 18 months.
I'm not ready. You guys aren't ready for me yet.
2A04, we're going to head to Mr. Blonder's class. Come on in, unmute. And I love your cool pink tone background by accident.
How to tell if a bug is poisonous or not?
Ooh, good question. You can't always tell just by looking at them. A good guess, a good way of thinking about it is that bugs that are brightly colored are often poisonous. They're trying to tell you, I don't taste very good. You better leave me alone. I'm going to make you sick. A good example of that is the monarch butterfly. Monarch butterflies are bright orange. They're saying, watch out, I'm dangerous, don't mess with me. Same thing with the black widow. That red hourglass shape is something that they're trying to use to warn away predators. But there are butterflies that are called viceroy butterflies, and they look very similar to monarchs. They're bright orange, similar number of spots, very, very similar, not the same. And not dangerous, not poisonous at all. And then the other thing you have to think about is that poison and venom is not the same thing. Poison you eat. So a monarch butterfly is poisonous. If you eat it in your bird, you sit there, you're very sick. But they can't sting you. Whereas Frankie has bright colors. He's warning you he's dangerous. He's not dangerous if you eat him. He's dangerous if he tries to sting you. So that's the difference there.
We covered mimicry. We covered sharing your color as a poison thing. We covered poison versus venom. That was like the best answer ever, Carolyn. That rocked.
That's my favorite thing about studying insects is that you can learn a lot. You can learn about camouflage and mimicry and symbiosis and all kinds of different things if you're curious about bugs. So it's a fun way to go.
Cool. Thanks for that question, guys. And Mr. Hancock, we're going to head to Georgetown now for you. We'll take a couple from our YouTube friends, and we'll do one more round with everyone because you guys are whipping through these. Come on in and take us away. Hey.
Hey. We had a question actually about mental health. Are you able to tell how are the insects feeling? Are they sad? Are they happy?
Interesting.
That's a great question. People don't always realize it or think about it, but yeah, you can tell, especially if you've known that animal for a while. We have 4 tarantulas. Oh, I actually have one here as a backup animal. 4 tarantulas. They're called Chilean rosehair tarantulas. And I can tell if they're feeling grumpy or annoyed at me. And mostly it's if they pull their legs in or if they try and walk towards a hiding spot. So I'm going to lift Rosie's house and then I'll show you guys what she looks like. But that's a good question. It's delicate because you don't necessarily want to put human values or human emotions directly onto an animal because they've got a whole set of different instincts and motivations and different things they're trying to achieve that are very different from human society. And but you can tell by body language how that animal is feeling. So if that difference makes sense, I hope it does. But I can tell just general temperament too. So this is Rosie. And let me focus. And Rosie gets to be on camera a lot because she is very chill. She is the type of spider that just sort of hangs out and isn't running around a lot. That's partially because of her species. Her species is one that we call an ambush predator. She just sort of sits and waits to ambush food that comes towards her. But this is actually an example of a posture that tells me she's a little apprehensive, a little annoyed maybe with me. If you see, her legs are all sort of poked in and covering the top of her body. And that is telling me that she's a little nervous. It's sort of like she's hunkering down, trying to make sure that no one bothers her. So I'll put her lid back on here in a second so I don't stress her out more. Another clue on a spider, at least from North and South America, is if she had a bunch of bald spots on her abdomen, that would tell me that she's kind of a grumpy tarantula. And that is just if she gets scared and kicks her hairs at me, that tells me that she's a little nervous and wants me to leave her alone. But Rosie almost never has bald spots on her abdomen because she doesn't get grumpy at me very often. So I'll put her lid back on and we will leave her alone. But that's a really thoughtful question.
Really
I like
question.
the
I
way.
was just gonna say, like, so nice, guys, and what a cool, nuanced answer, especially with a tarantula. So many people would say no to that question, and I'm so glad that you're a person who recognizes that you can very easily tell. I've worked at aquaria and zoos before, and with insects, with horseshoe crabs, with all manner of animals, you can tell if you know the animal just like you can with people. So very cool.
And I put her house back on where she can hide, and actually she's already stretched her legs out, so she's good.
All right, a quick one from online. Let's see, Miss Zhao's class, they're joining us in New Jersey. They want to know, have you ever been bitten by any of the insects in the bug zoo, or no?
No, that's part of, like we talked about before, we follow the rules to make sure that we're not hurting anybody, or that we're not hurting them, they're not hurting us. Let's see, who's nibbled on me? The millipedes sometimes. If you've had sugar on your hands, if you finish lunch and you come and you're handling the animals, it sort of feels like a baby's gumming you. The millipedes are like, this is sugar, and I like sugar. But I've never been bitten by anything. Yeah.
We've never run into anyone who's been bitten by anything at any of the zoos and aquaria we've ever brought on. So people that are trained generally don't put themselves in situations where an animal is likely to put them in danger or vice versa. So I'm really glad we get that question. All right, quick one from YouTube, and then Mrs. Fisher, thanks for your patience to live classes. We're coming to you all in a minute. We've still got like 6-7 minutes. Let's see. What can we do to help insects? It's a great question.
Ooh, this is a really important one because there are a ton of studies right now that are showing that insect population levels are declining by a lot. And it's one of those questions that does not have one easy answer. And that's often the case with most important questions in life, right? That there's not an easy answer. One of the best things you can do is to provide habitat for these animals, if you have a yard, not having a perfectly tidy yard that's full of grass, there's not a lot of habitat there. I think it's the National Wildlife Federation has a yard habitat program where you can certify your yard as a habitat. So you can sign up for that. And the things that are in a habitat are, you need access to water and food, shelter, place to raise your young, right? So if you can think about that you check out their program and that'll help you a lot. In my yard, I've got little spaces along the edge of my yard that's a bit wild. A big thing is to be planting flowers for pollinators. So, the world of insects is huge and they're pretty durable, but one of the best things that you can do, so because it's big, if you sort of bring it down and focus on what type of insects you want to support, Habitat's going to help everybody, which is great. But if you want to think about pollinators, I'm going to encourage you to think about native bees and native pollinators. Honeybees are great. They're not, but they're, I guess most of us are in North America, but they're not from North America. So when I think about save the bees, I think about save the native pollinators. So what that means is I plant native flowers, so flowers that are from Montana, because the bees that are from Montana are going to be like, yes, that is my favorite part of the buffet. Thank you. I plant flowers that are going to bloom all season. So some in the spring, some in the middle of summer, and some in the fall when they're hungry, all that time. And I avoid using pesticides, especially neonicotinoids, which are going to be causing problems in the pollen and in the nectar that the bees are collecting. So I try and limit my pesticide use. And I leave a little bit of my yard wild. I don't rake my leaves up in the fall. The Xerxes Society is another good one. If you want to look at their check mark. So Xerxes with an X is the society, the resource. So they've got a lot of, guess that one. They've got a lot of really good resources if you're not sure. But yeah, leaving your yard a little wild is a great way to start.
No better message than that. Something that we can all do when we head home as students and with our families. So I really encourage you to do so. We're going to do a rapid fire round, try and sneak in everybody. And if you have extra questions, everyone, please do email them to us. We'll get you those answers. But Mrs. Fisher, you can start us off in Carsonville. Come on in and take us away.
Is there any lanternflies of where you are at?
Any what flies?
Lanternflies.
Lanternflies.
Ooh, like fireflies?
No, lanternflies. Like
No, they're a little different. Lanternflies are weird kind of creatures. I'm trying to find a picture of a lanternfly as we go here. Do you know if there's any?
I don't know. That's a really good question. So here's the thing with millions of insects. I don't know all of them as much as I wish I could. So there's going to be times where I'm not sure exactly which ones. So I don't know exactly about lanternflies. I will say we don't have any fireflies. And this is actually something important. We have scientific names for all these insects so that we know we're on the same page. Because I grew up calling them lightning bugs. Some people call them fireflies. And if we're not sure, then scientists can get confused. That's why I have scientific names for them. I don't know about lanternflies. I'm sorry.
I looked this up really quick. So it looks like you have them as an invasive species now in Montana. That's the quickest thing that I can find. So they're there, but they're not supposed to be. But there might be some ones that are supposed to live there. I came from Ontario. We certainly had lanternflies. So what a cool question. Again, Mrs. Fisher's class. You guys are like on the ball.
Nice. Nice work.
Mr. Southwood's class, come on in with you guys. And then Blondo Hancock to wrap up. Take us away. Hey, guys.
What's your favorite animal that you have in the museum?
No pressure at all, Carolyn.
I really like our giant African millipedes. They're millipedes that are 11 inches long. I love our blue death painting beetles. And I really like Ringo.
Yeah. Ringo rocks. Ringo could be like a rock star, maybe like a drummer or a teacher. Thank you for liking millipedes. They're one of the coolest creatures ever. Honestly, kids, you want to see the freakiest things ever? Look up giant millipedes of all kinds all over the world. They're just magical animals.
You should also look up giant isopods isopods of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. They're like
You'll be
this
surprised
big.
what you find.
They're very odd. Mr. Blondo's class, heading to Winnipeg. Come on in and take us away. Hey.
Can you tell us on what were the most deadly and poisonous animals that you have ever seen in the lab?
Ooh, good question. So I don't know who the most poisonous ones are. I'm not as worried about them because I'm pretty confident I'm not going to eat anybody. But the millipedes some of them can make a form of cyanide. Again, it's weak because I'm a big mammal. They're a tiny animal. There's not a lot of volume enough to really mess with me. And that's sort of with venom, it depends, right? Some venom is going to go for your nervous system. Some is going to kill the skin right where you get it. Some people are allergic to venom. Some people are not. Some venom is really strong in a small amount. Some you need a large volume of venom for it to be dangerous. So I would say our most venomous animals here would be Frankie, the centipede, black widow, spider. We have a western black widow here. And maybe we used to have a tarantula from India that was really, really cool. And in the trees, and she was really dangerous. And I think she was a red slate tarantula. But so Frankie and Natasha, the black widow, would be the ones I'd be worried about.
And I'd rather hang out with a black widow than a big centipede any day. It's the one kind of animal that I must admit I'm a little skittish around big centipedes. They don't do. I grew up with house centipedes and they're freaky, but they are amazing animals. And I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks so much, guys. All right. I really encourage you, check out the social media page, the amazing website for the MissoulaButterflyHouse.org. So much to explore and discover there. And if you have extra questions, please do email them to us. But before we do a big wrap up and say thank you with everyone, we'll head to Mr. Hancock's class for one more question. Come on in and take us away.
Hey, a student was wondering, how can you tell the age of an insect?
Ooh.
Age of an insect. I know this is not a helpful answer, but it depends, which is unfortunately the case of a lot of things. So I can't look at Ringo and tell you how old he is. I can guess, and I have to rely on the lab notes to say this is when he emerged and this is how old he is above ground, and that means he's probably this. Same thing with the tarantulas. I know, okay, we got her on this date. She's about this size. That means, working backwards, Rosie's probably about 18. So we can guess on a lot of cases based on their size and how long we've had them. For some animals, for some insects, they will molt a certain number of times, and that will tell you about, and that happens at certain intervals, and that can tell you about how old they are. But usually it's estimating based on their size, and whether or not they have wings, if they get wings. So it depends.
For our students too, how do you know how old a person is? If you saw me, how old do you think I am? Please aim young. Right? It's a challenge with this, and it's a challenge with a lot of animals. So I really like when we get this question because it sort of puts the whole animal kingdom into perspective. Carolyn, this has been so much fun. I know we could literally go all day. Like, we've still got kids lining up, which is a good problem to have. Before we bring everyone in to say a big thank you and farewell, is there any final message you want to leave us with about the bug zoo or insects in general?
Ooh, I just hope you guys stay curious about everything. That's one of my favorite parts about working here, is getting to help people be curious and explore that curiosity. There's so much left to discover about the world of insects. So I hope you guys stay curious about bugs and their relatives and anything else you've got going on, because the world needs more curious people like you guys. So.
It certainly does. There's no better message than that. I hope you kids will go out and explore your own insects close to home. There's always insects wherever you are on this planet. You are inundated with bugs. Go find them. It's so much fun. I can attest to myself. And as you know from our first broadcast, Carolyn, what we do to wrap up every show is I'm going to bring in all our kids to say a huge thank you and farewell. So Mrs. Fisher's class, Mr. Southard's class, Mr. Warren's class, Mr. class. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you so much.